Hey everyone. So, a lot has happened in the past month or so with Dungeons & Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. We had the OGL 1.1 leak, then we had the subsequent community backlash, and then the 1.2 surveys, and finally, the announcement that the 5.1 SRD is going Creative Commons. And right off the bat, I'll say that news is genuinely shocking and welcome. And I want to thank everyone at Wizards of the Coast for listening to the community about our concerns regarding the original Open Gaming License. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about why ultimately it's time for me to say goodbye to Dungeons & Dragons 5e. You see, during the OGL drama, we had a bit of a TTRPG renaissance, with people exploring third-party content to brand new systems. Paizo announced their org license, Cobalt Press announced Project Black Flag, and people were experimenting with brand new systems. I mean, we had a thing called FishBlade. It was a lot. But now that Wizards has apologized and announced the 5.1 Creative Commons release, it seems like not as many people are as excited about those third-party publishers and systems. And that, to me, is a mistake. Not because I don't trust Wizards of the Coast. I mean, I don't trust them as much anymore, but because the more we have people playing games that aren't D&D related, the more vibrant and healthy the TTRPG community as a whole. GMs get better trying new systems, players get exposed to new games, and we don't have such a monopoly of everybody playing the same thing, because that, honestly, is a bit boring. And it leads, in my opinion, to lackluster products put out by people on top, aka WotC. And there's another huge factor as well, and this might be the most important, because this 2023 is the last full year in D&D 5e's life cycle. 1D&D is supposed to be launching next year, and although it's supposed to be backwards compatible, I expect such a fundamental shift in play culture due to WotC betting big on their VTT system that 5e as we know it is pretty much ending anyway. Now, people still play Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so I know that some will stick with the system that they're used to, and 5e has probably brought on more players than any other edition of Dungeons & Dragons in history, so who's to say how long the majority of the TTRPG community will stick with that? But WotC is certainly going to be pressuring people into moving on. I mean, they've invested so heavily. They bought D&D Beyond, and it's part of their big expanding the brand and monetizing D&D initiative. So we can expect 5e as it exists right now to be pushed aside by Wizards of the Coast in terms of support. So I, just like everyone else, ultimately have to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to stick with a stale system, or will I switch to WotC's, 1D&D? Or am I going to take this opportunity to branch out both as a player and a GM? Well, here's where I landed. Because of the OGL controversy, I have already invested in new systems, and the one I'm most excited about right now is Pathfinder 2e. Honestly, the depth of that game and the huge ocean of player options makes it a system that, although daunting at first, I'm really excited to be learning. And I'm also excited to see what the other third-party publishers are doing, because there are so many great systems out there. Blades in the Dark, Call of Cthulhu, Fate, Forbidden Lands, Savage World, Shadows of the Demon Lord, 10 Candles, Wicked Ones. The list goes on and on. Those third-party publishers were there for us when we needed them, when we were all fleeing Wizards of the Coast, and I think it's important to note that those companies aren't bargaining chips. We shouldn't discard them just because we, air quote, won against Hasbro. Third-party publishers are ran by people trying to make a living through providing a fun tabletop experience to the TTRPG community. So, as I find myself at these crossroads I talked about earlier, I'm not sure how big of a part D&D and Wizards of the Coast have to play in my future. Don't get me wrong, I'm likely going to see the new movie, I'll still play a 5e one-shots, and I'm also not saying nobody can go back to D&D. A lot of people don't have the time or money to invest into learning a brand new system. But, things like Pathfinder 2e are actually free on Archives of Nethys, so that's at least one of those obstacles gone. And with Paizo literally selling out of their 8-month supply of core rulebooks in 2 weeks, it shows that there is certainly a community interested in those different systems. So we'll have a brand new player base to explore the game with, Listen, If you really love 5e and that is the game for you, and it is the one that brings you the most joy, then by all means enjoy it, because that's what TTRPGs are supposed to do. But just remember, there are so many other games and so many other systems and so many other GMs with a spot at their table open and waiting for you. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.